Guys, I saw 88 movies in 2018. That is a record high for me. It's kind of crazy. And it's time to get on the top 10 worst of them all. And I'll tell you this, I don't do this list every year to crap on people and say, hey, I didn't like your movie. Quit show business forever. It's quite the opposite, actually. I can't wait to see projects from every single member of the cast and crew involved in each of these projects. But art is imperfect, the same way that humanity is imperfect. Sometimes you go to work and you have a bad day at the office, or sometimes you think something's coming out and it comes out a different way. And a lot of filmmakers and cast members were going to say, you know what, yeah, we were going for something, it didn't really pan out, and, art is imperfect the same way that life is imperfect. And it's time to celebrate those imperfections and just kind of laugh them off together so we can move forward into a brighter tomorrow. I think that a lot of the people involved in some of these movies are willing to admit that, having seen the films after they were released. I know I'm willing to do that, having seen these movies and knowing that I'm looking forward to seeing a lot coming from the talents behind these in the future. So let's get started laughing these all off. Two other brief things before I get started, though, is that this is my subjective list. Not every movie on this list is going to be on your list, and I didn't see every bad movie that came with the series. So if you're like, hey, why isn't 50 Shades Freed on your list? It's because I didn't see it, so it's not going to be on my list. With those things out of the way, I cannot wait to count down these things because I saw all of them, and I resented seeing all of them. Starting off at number 10, this wasn't a terrible movie, but it was just an awkward movie. It was Rampage with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I got to go to the premiere of this movie, so I was so hyped. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, the dialogue's not working, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan feels like he's in a different movie, and the action is fine, but it feels weird, and I feel like Dwayne Johnson having the relationship with this monkey just isn't clicking in the way I wanted it to. The action sequences were fine. Joe Manganiello's scene was fine in the movie, but Dwayne Johnson, I felt like the entire thing was just trying to be so cheesy and so fun in a Fast and the Furious style way, but it just wound up being unable. I was unable to take it seriously by the end of it, and I was like, that's what happens when you try to adapt a video game to a movie. Should have known that going in. Moving on to number 9, though, we have a different type of movie that was trying to be serious, but it wound up being too serious, and that's Mile 22 with Mark Wahlberg. I love Peter Berg. I think Patriots Day is a near masterpiece. A Lone Survivor and Deepwater Horizon are both also great. This movie totally missed the mark. It was boring. The characters were weird. I thought that the editing and the plotting were just awful. The movie winds up with this twist at the end that kind of undoes everything that happened in the movie up to that point, and I was just like, why are we here? Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg have so many great ideas. I'm sure they could have done something even better than this, but it just felt like a B action movie that I could have done without seeing. Speaking of B-action movies I could have gone without seeing, let's go to number 8 on this list, which is Bruce Willis's Death Wish remake. Bruce Willis just felt like he was sleeping through the entire movie. He carries it as a lead while he's asleep, and you're like, why do I care if he doesn't care? The action in the movie is everything you would expect from a vigilante-style movie. It feels like it's almost a cliche of a cliche of a cliche at this point. You're just like, I've seen it before. It's been done before in good ways. It's been done familiarly in fine ways before. This is the worst of the worst, guys. You've got the horrible Dean Norris character who's trying to track down what Bruce Willis is doing, and it's just so overtly obvious what's going on the entire time that you're like, I wish you were smart characters so you could actually figure things out. There are no stakes whatsoever when his daughter almost gets killed and his wife does get killed. You're just like, why do I care? You guys barely had any scenes on screen together beforehand, so no emotional levity to it and no action that was exciting whatsoever. Speaking of no exciting action, I guess we have a theme on this list up to this point. Moving on to number 7, we have The Commuter with Liam Neeson. This movie had some of the worst twists I've seen on screen all year, and the script just felt like it was kind of making itself up as it was going along, and I know that when you're writing a script, it's sometimes hard to make a transition work from scene to scene, but this movie felt like it was like 7 different movies where you're like, oh, maybe it's going to be this character, and let's see that situation play out, and then, oh, maybe it's going to be this character, and this situation can play out and everything. The dialogue was super on the nose. I felt like Liam Neeson's character kind of knew what was going on, but also was in the dark the entire time. So when ultimately you get to the end of the movie, you're like, wait, no, that didn't make any sense to begin with. It was supposed to be this conspiracy, and like, there's no logic behind it. The movie just falls apart in that way, and I wish it was written more smartly. Smarter, more smartly, one of those two. Ironic word to mix up. Now we're going on to number 6, and this is where I really start disliking the movies, guys, and you may be confused for a second, because you're like, wait a second, I thought Sorry to Bother You was supposed to be on the best of the year list. Nope, this movie got like a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I despised every second of it. It was sloppy, it was messy, it was trying to have this huge thematic payoff and everything, but it ultimately leads to nothing. The entire thing felt like it was a bunch of unrelated scenes all kind of stitched together with the same actors in it. It was trying to be so woke and so interesting with how much social commentary it had, but when you're trying to accomplish so much and you're trying to just put it all out there and trying to be socially proactive and everything, you just wind up with a schlocky mess here where there's no payoff. Another movie you've probably heard a lot about is the number 5 worst movie of the year on the list, and that's Best Friends Volume 1, starring Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero. I mean, what do you expect when these guys team up for another movie, to be honest? Like, I was walking out of this and a couple of my friends were like, no, that was like legit really good, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was like The Room all over again. Would you say The Room is a really good movie? No, this isn't either. It was horrendous. is trying to be a thriller, but it wound up being a comedy the entire time. Like, Greg Sestero's character was portraying he was a nightcrawler or psycho or something like that, but Tommy Wiseau's character thought he was in The Room Part 2. Their chemistry didn't really work for me. Tommy Wiseau adds some levity to the movie that is much needed when it takes itself too seriously, but it also feels like it has no clue what it wants to be. It's being pulled in these two separate directions. By the time we get to the end, there's a scene that cuts to black and white and it goes into slow motion and everything, and I am like, who shot this? This is epic levels of bad. It feels like it was, at a point I was like, this has to be ironic, right? This has to be another situation like with The Room where it's trying so hard to be bad that's actually good, but no, it was just bad. Another movie that was just bad is Pacific Rim Uprising. This movie took everything the first Pacific Rim was, and it just made it way, way, way worse. The action felt lower budget. All of the CGI felt like it was super weakly done. Charlie Day's character is a total cartoon who has no plan whatsoever with what he's doing. The other characters are totally unmemorable. John Boyega was in this one, and his character was a total jerk that I couldn't get behind whatsoever. I felt like every aspect of the movie just took all the gravitas and charm out of the first Pacific Rim and said, what if we do that, but make it like a Transformers movie? Those things make money, right? And it just wound up being 100% way worse. Alright guys, we're getting down to it. The top 3 worst movies here. These are the ones that really hit me and stuck with me. Number 3 is The Strangers Pray at Night, and they sure do. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, what does the script to a really bad horror movie look like? Because I feel like at this point, you can't just write, character says, I will be right back, runs into dark woods. Like, that doesn't happen anymore, does it? But sure enough, in this movie, it happens at least 3 or 4 times. The characters say, let's split up, and the characters inevitably get killed in cartoony ways when the strangers show up, and you're like, this family wasn't relatable to begin with. I thought the daughter was completely whiny the entire time. The brother wasn't much better. The 2 parents didn't care about their kids at all. So I'm like, when they're getting hacked up, I'm like, I kind of want the strangers to kill them. The first Strangers is not an all-time great horror movie, but it's at least scary. This movie had no scares. The jump scares were abysmal. The acting was abysmal. The suspense buildup was abysmal. None of it felt exciting. None of it felt real. None of it kept me on the edge of my seat. Moving on to number 2, guys, I love everything that Disney puts out. I sincerely do. I'm not going to say Solo for this one, so don't sweat it, Star Wars fans. I actually enjoyed that movie. But I went to see A Wrinkle in Time after I got off a flight back to LA from Boston, and I was tired. And then going into it, I was like, oh man, this is boring, and I can't wait to fall asleep. But then the dialogue starts, and you're just like, oh man, this is so actively bad that I can't even fall asleep. The weird, like, gigantic Oprah head guiding the kids on their journey, I was like, what kind of movie? Is this some kind of, like, hallucinogenic trip that was written in the 60s and just made today? Because it made no sense whatsoever. When the brother turns evil at the end, I was just like, this came out of nowhere. And I feel like it was trying to accomplish this theme of having, like, you know, love connects the galaxies and everything like that, which Interstellar did, like, decently, but it's a really hard thing to execute, and this movie did not do it whatsoever. And A Wrinkle in Time really stuck with me as something that was just sloppy and boring and poorly written to the 10th degree. But friends, none of it was quite as bad as number 1. And a lot of you probably have the same number 1 as me. If you don't, I would be shocked if it's not at least on your list. It's Truth or Dare. Blumhouse is one of the best studios working in business right now, and this is by far the worst movie they have ever made. At a point, I was like, this has to be ironic, right? This cannot actually be trying to be a horror movie. It must be trying to be a comedy, and it was not. All of the leads in it were horrid together. I felt like none of them were actually friends. None of them made smart social decisions. None of them were actually looking out for the well-being of their friend group. Everything just happened because the writer said it happened, and none of it felt like it was actually fleshed out. The stupid smiles that they get when the Truth or Dare demon possesses them, which is a sentence I cannot believe I've ever had to say in my entire life, were so cartoony and so over the top that I was just like, what kind of movie am I watching right now? Like, it felt like it was something that should have never ever even have been considered. And it could have been a fun horror movie with a little bit of comedy in it from time to time, but when the horror sequences are the things that get the biggest laughs in the theater and things that just feel the stupidest, you've accomplished something wrong, friends. You've accomplished the worst movie I have seen all year. Alright guys, well, anger is off the table now. I have gotten it all out of my system. And those are the top 10 worst movies of the year. Let me know all of your top 10 worst of the year in the comment section down below. You guys can also go over to mymoviethoughts.com, follow me on Twitter at @JohnHayeck, or subscribe to this YouTube channel for times where I post my links. All 3 of those are in the description down below. Go for my top 10 best of the year list on the channel as well. You guys, as always, can like this video, comment on it, share it with some friends. I am John Hayeck, so thank you guys so much for watching.